Welcome back. Has San Bernardino taken a place in American history among such points as 9/11 and Pearl Harbor? A call, if not to arms, then a state of alert that alters our lives and worldview. Well, NBC's Mari Payton is here with a guest who has global perspective on that. Mari.
Thanks, Gene. We are joined by former State Assemblyman Nathan Fletcher, a 10-year veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps who was decorated for valor while serving overseas as a counterintelligence specialist. He's now a poli-sci professor at UCSD and a top advisor to the Truman National Security Project. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, so this is a big question with a not-so-simple answer, but what can be done about ISIS?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, if we take a step back and we think about where have we been in situations like this before. Harry Truman had a great line. He said, the only thing that's new is the history you don't know. And if we go back in time, we faced a similar challenge, and that was from the threat of communism. And what the United States of America did was come up with a comprehensive strategy to say we're going to have a military strategy to confront and defeat it. We're going to have an economic strategy. We're going to have a political strategy. We're going to have a test of wills, and we're going to win the war of ideology. And I think a similar comprehensive approach we need to take to defeating the threat of ISIS and radical extremism across the world.
Not only overseas, though, but let's talk about the domestic issue. Can U.S. intelligence and law enforcement be effective in deterring terrorism while still protecting and honoring the Constitution?
Well, they can. And one of the things is one of the reasons ISIS hates us, and this is really important that we understand. This is fundamental to the fight against ISIS. One of the reasons they hate us is we are an open society. We're a society where you can any religion you want, or no religion at all. And so one of the worst things we could do when we're trying to confront ISIS would be the types of things we've seen where we castigate Muslims, we castigate one religion over another. One of the best things we can do is empower our intelligence agencies to do their job, allow our military to do its job overseas, but most importantly, stand unified as a country to say Christians, Jews, Muslims, those of no faith, all stand together behind our set of principles, and that'll do more to defeat ISIS than perhaps anything else.
You're sort of touching on something that's been pretty controversial in the last few days, but this executive order by Trump not allowing any Muslims into the country. Can you just comment a little bit on that?
Well, I think in a lot of ways it's disheartening to see how much perhaps the Republican Party's changed. After the September 11th attacks, the leader of the Republican Party, President George W. Bush, stood with Muslim leaders. And he said Islam is a religion of peace. They are our friends. We stand united with them against the extremists who pervert their religion. And now you have the leading Republican for president doing something that is not only unconstitutional, it's inconsistent with our values. And what he's doing is exactly what ISIS wants. What they want is propagate this notion that there is a war between the United States and the religion of Islam, and there is not. And I think the most effective tool to combat that is standing with leaders of the Muslim faith. We saw the president of Indonesia come out with a strong statement. We saw the president of Iran come out with a strong statement to say ISIS is not Islam. ISIS is a perversion, a misinterpretation, a deviation from what the true spirit is. And if we can do that, we can undercut their support in the Islamic world and hold fast to our values.
And also about things that we can do here at home. We're going in the holidays, a lot of big gatherings. We'll have large populations in very centralized areas.
Right.
What can be done in terms of security, and should people be afraid to go out?
Well, it's natural to be afraid. I think I was talking to a friend I served with in Iraq the other day, and I actually was saying I think what happened in San Bernardino has in some ways a greater impact on the fear level across America than perhaps what even happened on 9/11. Because the September 11th was New York, it was a large city, but what happened in San Bernardino, if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. And so there's a natural desire to be fearful, and there's a natural desire to want to blame someone. And I honestly think one of the best things we can do, we do everything we can with intelligence, we do everything we can with law enforcement, we do everything we can, see something, say something. There's common sense things we can do to prevent gun violence. But I still think one of the best things we can do as Americans is live our life, live our values, live who we are as a people, and say that we won't live in fear. We'll do everything we can from a security standpoint to be secure, but they're not going to impact our way of life.
One last question. How do we screen refugees and sort of keep track of visas and who's in the country and who's being let into the country?
Well, there's clearly a problem. I think the president's articulated, and I think members of both parties agree with the visa waiver program. And I think that's an area that needs to be tackled and tightened up. When it comes to refugees, we have one of the most rigorous screening processes for refugees that's ever existed. It's a multi-year process that involves countless steps. And I'm confident that if we adhere to that, and there also haven't been any instances of folks coming here as refugees creating problems. But I think it's really important. I was tremendously disappointed in the actions the U.S. Congress took when they passed legislation that I believe really is inconsistent with our values. What happened to bring us your tired, your huddled masses, those yearning to breathe freedom, That's who we are as a people. And a lot of times when we're talking about refugees, we're talking about people like the Iraqi interpreters who worked for me as a Marine when I was overseas, people who put their life on the line for Americans, and we gave them our word that if you help us and you're ever in danger, we will be there to make sure you're safe. And I think that we can ensure security and ensure freedom while not violating those core principles.
Okay, Nathan, thank you for your perspective.
Good to see
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
All right, Jean, back to you.